Hello everyone, my name is Abby and I am the Young Adult Assistant at the Twin Lakes Library System and I use she, her pronouns. And today we are actually joined by my dog, Ghost. Say hi! He's decided he's going to be my assistant today for this Slice of Life video. Today I wanted to talk to you all about K-dramas. So as you know, I did a video about K-pop and K-pop books, so now I wanted to do a video about K-dramas. K-dramas, if you don't know what they are just Korean television shows. They're very popular in Korea, and some of them have made pretty big waves in other countries around the world. And, I like them because they're typically only a season long, which means you don't have to do any long-term real dedication to it. They are long episodes. They're usually like an hour at minimum, but you don't have to watch like 5 seasons of them. There's one season and then it's a whole story. I think the acting is really good in K-dramas. I think the camera quality that happens in K-dramas is really well. The setting is nice. The stories are really compelling. I typically really like all of the characters. And what's nice about K-dramas is you can typically find them all over the internet. There are a bunch of different streaming platforms that are specifically just for K-dramas, and you can find them on different streaming sites like Hulu and Netflix, so they're everywhere, so you have many options. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. These are 4 of my favorite K-dramas, and K-dramas I think that are good for people who are just getting into K-dramas. So yeah. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is called Pinocchio, and it is about a girl named Choi In-ha, and she wants to become a broadcast journalist, but she suffers from Pinocchio syndrome, which makes her hiccup every time she lies, and that's kind of a problem in her field. But she's very, she really wants to do it. She's really passionate about it, so she tries everything she can to make her dream successful. One of her, challengers or coworkers, who is also actually like her adoptive uncle, it's a very long story, is Choi Dal-po, who, he doesn't really look like he'd fit in with the glamorous world of television broadcast, but he's actually very smart and has a really good memory, and he has a really tragic past that In-ha is actually kind of connected to, and, they've grown up together essentially, so they have a very interesting dynamic, and as this show goes on, they start to sort of unravel the mystery of that past event that happened, and the truth sort of starts to come out about it, and it's also just about them becoming reporters and doing their thing there. So that's one of my favorite. It stars one of my favorite actors, favorite K-drama actors, Lee Jung-suk. I think he's great. And I really like the dynamic between the main two. I mean, the show is a little, it's very dramatic, but it's dramatic in a really fun way. So that's my first recommendation. My next recommendation is Girl Bong Soon, and this is a romantic comedy, but it's about Do Bong Soon, she is born with supernatural, superhuman strength. So she's really small, short, young woman, but she's can lift a bus, she's so strong, and it's a gift that's passed through all of the women in her family. Her dream is to create a video game, and she is the main character of the video game, and she likes her strength, but also she kind of just wants to be normal, and she's in love with her childhood friend, who is now a police detective, and he is In Guk-do, and he doesn't really notice her, and he just kind of sees her as a friend, and she's really bummed about it. But she ends up getting a job as a bodyguard to a man named An Min-hyuk, who is the CEO of a gaming company that she's really interested in. And he's kind of funny and more playful and more childlike, but he is sort of being harassed and getting blackmailed, so he needs a bodyguard, and when he sees Bong Soon's power and use, he thinks she's a perfect candidate for it. And then another sort of plot that's going into that is there's these kidnappings happening all around the neighborhoods where Bong Soon lives, and she sort of has to try to capture the culprit who is targeting her best friend and is sort of connected to Min Hyuk's case. And on top of that, he's sort of helping her, train and become more aware of her powers and to get better at handling them. So yeah, so there's a lot going into that. This one's a little bit cheesier, but it's kind of aware of the fact that it's cheesy, and it does that on purpose. It makes fun of itself. It's a really funny show. All of the characters are very lovable. You want to root for Bong Soon the whole time, and I just really recommend it. I think it's a lot of fun, and it was very popular when it initially came out, and a lot of people really say that's a good one to get into when you're first starting out in K-dramas, and I agree, it was one of the first ones I ever watched, and I really liked it. The third one I'm going to be talking about is Moment of 18, and this is actually set in high school, and it follows high school age characters, and specifically it follows Choi Jun-woo, who has kind of faced a lot of challenges in his young life. His mother was very, very young when she had him, which is kind of stigmatized. He's been stigmatized for it, and a lot of people don't expect very much of him, and he is forced to take responsibility for something that he didn't do, which causes him to transfer to a different high school. And because of that, he doesn't really want to make any friends, and he wants to be left alone, and he doesn't want to form any long-term relationships. But when he gets there, he meets other kids who are, just as stressed about the world and kind of going through their own things, and they sort of help him break out of his shell and get him to be more open and feel more accepted and comforted. So this show I think deals with a lot of really serious topics: academic pressure, emotional abuse from parents specifically in this show, just a lot of different things. And I think it does a good job at sort of capturing what it feels like to be a teenager and how certain things feel like they're the end of the world when you're that old, and just all the pressure that you're under at that age. And so I really appreciated the show. This is actually one I watched a lot more recently, but I really enjoyed it. I think the acting is really strong. I think it's pretty realistic in terms of the way it depicts the teenagers. They're not like super old, and like, there's some shows like Riverdale who like the actors are like 29 and they're playing 18-year-olds. That does happen. I mean, sometimes some of the actors are definitely older than being teenagers, but I think it's easier to take them a little bit more seriously. So yeah, and then the last show that I'm going to recommend, and this is actually one that I am currently watching, this is called My ID is Gangnam Beauty. So it follows our main character, Kang Mireille, and she decides to get plastic surgery because a lot of her life she's been bullied for how she looks, and she sort of decides that she's tired of it and she doesn't want to deal with it anymore. And so she gets plastic surgery, and she goes into university without anyone knowing her, or so she thinks. But she actually runs into an old middle school classmate named Do Kyung-suk, and I apologize if I pronounced any of these names wrong. I'm doing my very best. But he was a classmate of hers in middle school, and he actually recognizes her. But he is not like the rest of the kids that she grew up with. He never bullied her, and he actually stood up for her a lot and wants to stand up for her, and takes very seriously, and has never been cruel to her in that sort of way. And as this goes on, people start to realize that Mireille's had plastic surgery, and it sort of starts to backfire on her, and then she sort of realizes there's a lot of other pressure that comes into all of this wider social acceptance that maybe she wasn't prepared to deal with. But she also learns about self-confidence and realizing that, there's more to life than physical beauty, and that people shouldn't be judged on their physical appearances. And yeah, it sort of just follows her journey as she sort of grows into accepting herself. This show, I'm loving it so far. I really like it. I like the dynamic. One of the the main actor in this show, he is in one of my favorite K-pop groups, so that's kind of why I started watching it. But it's a really good show. It deals with really important themes like prejudice against physical appearances and, more feminist aspects, which was really nice to see. Um, and I just really appreciate everything that it's trying to say. And, Mireille is guilty of it herself, judging people physically, and it really shows how she tries to learn and become better from that instead of what she used to be. So yeah, so those are my recommendations, and I hope that you get a chance to watch them and enjoy them as much as I did. Bye bye.